The envelope arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning. For most people, it would have looked ordinary. For 67-year-old Michael Carter, it felt like a death sentence. He sat at his kitchen table in the small farming town of Millfield, unfolded the letter, and read the words 3 times before they finally sank in. Notice of foreclosure. According to the bank, he had failed to make the final payment on his mortgage. The final payment. The payment that Michael knew he had already made. He stared out the window at the house he had lived in for 38 years. The house where he and his wife, Sarah, had raised their daughter. The house where they celebrated birthdays, holidays, and countless ordinary days that somehow became precious memories. Sarah had passed away 2 years earlier. Now the bank was trying to take the last thing they had built together. Michael folded the letter carefully. Then he whispered the same words he had repeated since Sarah died. One step at a time. The next morning, Michael drove into town. The local branch of the bank sat in the center of Main Street, a polished building of glass and stone that looked completely out of place among the older brick shops. Inside, a young employee greeted him politely. Michael explained the situation. "I made the final payment 3 months ago." The employee checked the computer. Her expression changed. "I'm sorry, sir, but our records show the payment was never received." Michael frowned. "That's impossible." She shrugged. "According to the system, your account remains unpaid." Michael pulled a folder from under his arm. Inside was a copy of the cashier's check. The employee looked at it briefly. "Sir, you'll need to speak with the collections department." "I've already tried." "Then there's nothing more I can do." The conversation ended exactly where it began. Michael walked out feeling frustrated but not defeated. Not yet. Over the next 2 weeks, he called the bank repeatedly. Each time, he explained the same story. Each time, he was transferred to someone new. And each time, he received the same answer. "Our records do not show the payment." One representative even suggested he might have forgotten to mail it. Michael nearly laughed. He had spent 40 years managing farm finances. He wasn't the type to forget a mortgage payment. Especially the last one. Then something interesting happened. While searching through old paperwork, he found a certified mail receipt. The cashier's check had not only been mailed. It had been delivered. And signed for. Michael stared at the signature. Someone at the bank had accepted the payment. The bank had received the money. Yet they were claiming otherwise. For the first time, he felt something stronger than frustration. He felt anger. A week later, he returned to the branch. This time he carried copies of every document. The cashier's check. The certified mail receipt. The delivery confirmation. Everything. The branch manager, Daniel Brooks, finally agreed to meet him. Daniel barely glanced at the documents. "Our system doesn't show payment." Michael pushed the paperwork across the desk. "Then your system is wrong." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Our records are accurate. Someone signed for the check. That doesn't prove it was processed." Michael stared at him. "So you're telling me the bank received my money and lost it?" Daniel's expression hardened. "I'm telling you that unless the balance is paid, foreclosure proceedings will continue." The meeting was over. Michael left quietly. But something had changed. He was no longer trying to convince the bank. He was preparing to fight it. That evening, he visited a local attorney named Emma Reynolds. Emma listened carefully. Unlike the bank, she actually examined the documents. Then she asked a simple question. "Do you have a copy of the check itself?" Michael nodded. She smiled. "Good." A few days later, Emma obtained the banking records. The results shocked even her. The cashier's check had been deposited 3 months earlier. By the bank. The money had entered their system. The payment existed. The bank had accepted it. Yet foreclosure proceedings continued anyway. Emma sat back in her chair. "This isn't a mistake anymore." Michael looked confused. What is it? It's negligence. Emma immediately sent a legal demand letter. The bank responded 2 weeks later. Not with an apology. Not with a correction. Instead, their legal department insisted everything had been handled properly. Michael couldn't believe it. Even with proof in front of them, they refused to admit fault. Then Emma discovered something else. The bank had charged Michael late fees. Additional penalties. Legal expenses. All based on a debt that had already been paid. The amount now exceeded several $1,000s. And they were still moving toward foreclosure. That was when Emma decided to file a lawsuit. News travels quickly in a small town. Soon everyone knew about the case. At the diner. At the hardware store. At church. People began talking. Many had their own stories. Mysterious fees. Missing paperwork. Unexpected penalties. One by one, former customers came forward. Some provided statements. Others provided records. A pattern started to emerge. Michael wasn't the only person affected. He was simply the first person with undeniable proof. The lawsuit grew larger. And the bank grew nervous. 3 months after Michael received the foreclosure notice, the case reached court. The courtroom was packed. Residents filled nearly every seat. The bank arrived with expensive attorneys. Michael arrived carrying the same worn folder he had carried from the beginning. The evidence was devastating. The signed delivery receipt. The deposited cashier's check. The internal bank records. Emails showing employees discussing the missing payment weeks before foreclosure actions continued. The judge reviewed everything carefully. Then came the question nobody at the bank wanted to answer. If the payment was received and deposited, why did foreclosure proceedings continue? Silence. The bank's attorneys had no convincing explanation. Because there wasn't one. 2 weeks later, the ruling arrived. The judge sided completely with Michael. The foreclosure was dismissed immediately. All penalties and fees were removed. The bank was ordered to compensate Michael for legal expenses and damages. But the consequences didn't stop there. State regulators launched an investigation. They reviewed years of records. What they found was far worse than anyone expected. Missing documentation. Improper collections. Systemic errors. Failure to correct known mistakes. Within months, the bank faced massive financial penalties. Several executives resigned. The branch manager who dismissed Michael lost his position. The institution that had ignored a retired farmer suddenly found itself fighting for survival. One autumn afternoon, exactly 3 months after the court ruling, Michael sat on his porch watching the sunset. The mortgage was fully paid. The house was safe. The lawsuit was over. Emma stopped by with a newspaper. The headline covered another major penalty against the bank. She handed it to him. Michael read it quietly. Then folded it and placed it aside. Emma smiled. "You don't seem very excited." Michael looked toward the garden Sarah had planted years earlier. "I didn't want revenge." "What did you want?" He thought for a moment. "The truth." Emma nodded. "And you got it?" Michael smiled. "No." He looked at the house. The memories. The life he and Sarah had built. "I got something better." "What?" "Home." The wind moved gently through the trees. For the first time in months, there were no letters to answer. No phone calls to make. No battles left to fight. Just peace. And sometimes, after a lifetime of hard work, peace is the greatest victory of all.